The cold wakes you before the light does. Stone walls hold winter inside them for months, radiating a chill that seeps through wool and leather alike. This is an English castle in the 13th century, and it is nothing like the stories suggest. There are no tapestries thick enough to stop the draft that crawls along the floor. The fire in the center of the Great Hall creates as many problems as it solves. And by the time morning arrives, you will understand why comfort was never the purpose of these walls. Dawn comes through arrow slits barely wider than a man's hand spread flat against the stone. These narrow openings were designed to keep arrows out during sieges, not to let light in. The Great Hall, where most of the castle's inhabitants slept, remains dark well past sunrise in winter months. Smoke from the central hearth hangs in visible layers, trapped beneath a roof with no proper chimney. Your eyes burn before you've taken 10 steps from wherever you slept last night. No one here finds this unusual, because no one has ever known anything different from shadow and smoke. The Great Hall is the heart of all castle life, where almost everything important happens within its walls. Meals are eaten here, disputes are settled here, and business is conducted before witnesses who sleep nearby. At night, servants and retainers sleep on the floor among the rushes and scraps of leftover food. There are no separate bedrooms for anyone below the rank of lord in this entire structure. Straw pallets are spread each evening, and bodies cluster around the dying fire for warmth until morning. The lord and lady have a private chamber, but even that room is shared with attending servants. The smell is what a modern visitor would notice first, and it would haunt them long after leaving. Straw rushes covering the floor are changed perhaps once a season, sometimes even less frequently than that. Into those rushes fall scraps of meat, bones tossed to dogs, spilled ale, and tracked-in waste from the yard. The mixture compresses over weeks into a layer that crunches and squelches underfoot with every step. Castle dwellers sprinkled herbs to mask the smell: rosemary, lavender, meadowsweet, whatever grew nearby in season. They weren't trying to fix the problem, only to stop noticing it long enough to eat. Morning begins with work, and work in a castle never stops from the moment the first servant wakes. Water must be hauled from the courtyard well in buckets heavier than small children can carry alone. The quality of that water is questionable at the best of times, far worse after heavy rainfall. Wells inside castle walls often sat dangerously close to cesspits and garbage heaps piled against the foundations. Nobody understood contamination in any scientific way, but everyone had noticed that well water sometimes brought illness. Those who could afford alternatives drank weak ale instead, brewed daily for every household member, including children. Breakfast happens quickly, with no ceremony for anyone below the rank of lord in this household. Yesterday's bread hardened overnight to the point of requiring ale to soften it before eating properly. Perhaps some cheese if stores allow, though likely not until later in the week when supplies are counted. The kitchens are built separate from the main hall, specifically to prevent fire from spreading through everything at once. This practical arrangement means that food arrives at the table lukewarm in summer and completely cold in winter. Nobody here eats for pleasure in any way we would recognize as pleasure today. Food is fuel for bodies that will work without meaningful rest until darkness makes labor impossible. The Lord holds court in the Great Hall most mornings, hearing disputes that have traveled from tenant farms miles away. A boundary argument between neighbors, a debt unpaid for 2 full seasons, an insult requiring formal resolution. Justice here is personal and immediate, delivered with a speed that would terrify anyone expecting procedural fairness. The Lord decides guilt based on testimony, community reputation, and his own assessment of the men before him. There is no appeal beyond these walls, no higher authority available to common folk seeking recourse. A man accused of theft might lose his hand before the noon meal is served. The Garrison lives in conditions that make even the crowded Great Hall seem comfortable by honest comparison. Men-at-arms sleep in guardrooms and tower chambers, wherever they can find space with a roof overhead. Their bedding is loose straw that compresses to almost nothing within days of continuous use. Their meals consist of whatever the kitchen has left after feeding the Lord's household and any guests. A castle in peacetime still requires guards watching from the walls at every hour of darkness, without exception. These soldiers are not knights with noble blood and hopes of advancement through loyal service. They are working men who carry weapons instead of plows, and their futures end at these walls. The guardrobe is the castle's answer to human waste, and it is exactly as primitive as the name suggests. A stone seat projects from the wall over a shaft that drops waste into the moat or cesspit below. Some guardrobes empty into dry pits that must eventually be cleared by workers no one acknowledges or speaks with. There is rarely a door on these chambers, only a curtain if the household has wealth enough for modesty. Wind howls up through the shaft in winter months, making every necessary visit an exercise in pure speed. Lords hung their expensive clothing near guardrobe shafts because the ammonia rising from below killed moths effectively. This counted as sophisticated household management by anyone who understood the costly alternative of ruined wool. Bathing requires such elaborate preparation that most castle inhabitants simply never experience it fully in their lives. A wooden tub might be carried to the lord's chamber and filled with water heated over kitchen fires downstairs. Servants haul bucket after bucket up narrow winding stairs, knowing the water cools with every passing minute. By the time the lord actually enters the tub, the water may already be lukewarm at very best. Most people in this castle wash their hands before meals and their faces when dirt becomes unbearable to carry. The connection between bodily cleanliness and physical health exists only as scattered wisdom passed down through generations of women. Full immersion in warm water remains a luxury most will never experience even once in their entire lives. By midday, the Great Hall transforms from sleeping quarters and morning courtroom into the castle's primary dining space. Trestle tables are assembled quickly and covered with cloth that hides rough wood scarred by years of use. The lord and his family eat on a raised platform at one end, visible to everyone seated below them. They receive meat first, cut from better portions of whatever animal has been slaughtered or salted most recently. But the basic food is largely the same across every rank eating together in this room. Preservation defines the castle's entire relationship with food in ways difficult to truly understand without tasting it. Meat is packed in so much salt that it requires hours of soaking before anyone can chew it. Fish is dried on outdoor racks or smoked until it becomes leathery and hard as seasoned wood for building. Vegetables are pickled in brine or stored in cool cellars where they slowly soften into something barely recognizable. Fresh food exists only during brief seasonal windows when gardens produce and animals are healthy enough to slaughter. The rest of the year, every single meal tastes primarily of salt and smoke and unvarying monotony. The afternoon brings labor that continues without meaningful pause until failing light makes careful work impossible to perform. Women spin wool endlessly, creating thread that becomes cloth that eventually becomes the clothing everyone wears. Men repair stone walls, tend horses, and practice fighting with blunted weapons in the muddy courtyard below. Children old enough to walk and follow simple instructions are given tasks proportional to their developing strength. A 7-year-old might spend entire afternoon hours turning a heavy spit over the kitchen fire without rest. Childhood in this castle is merely preparation for the labor that will define every remaining year of life. Light begins failing by mid-afternoon during winter, and the castle grows darker in stages that feel like drowning. Arrow slits admit so little illumination that noon can feel like dusk inside the thick stone walls. Candles are expensive enough that servants count them carefully, accounting for every stub burned down to nothing at all. Most household light comes from rushlights, reeds dipped in rendered animal fat and lit like small tapers. They smoke constantly, smell of burning grease, and illuminate almost nothing beyond arm's reach from their weak flame. Moving through the castle after true sunset means memorizing every corridor and trusting your feet completely. Rats live in these walls as permanently as the lord's own family does, and no one pretends otherwise anymore. They nest in the floor rushes, breed freely in the grain stores, and gnaw through leather goods with remarkable ease. Cats help reduce the population somewhat, but rats reproduce faster than any predator can hunt them successfully. The castle operates around their constant presence, rather than fighting battles that cannot possibly be won. Food hangs from rafters on iron hooks, placed too high for any rat to reach by leaping. Storage rooms have floors raised above ground level, where burrowing from beneath becomes impossible to accomplish. The rats simply find another way inside, regardless of every precaution taken against them. Entertainment exists here in forms that would seem deeply strange by any standard familiar to modern audiences. A traveling musician might perform in the Great Hall for nothing more than a meal and dry space. Dice games and simple board games pass the evening hours for those fortunate enough to have any leisure. Storytelling remains the dominant entertainment. News mixed with legend and rumor, delivered by anyone who traveled recently. The profound isolation of castle life makes every visitor valuable, simply because they carry fresh words from outside. Illness arrives without warning and departs without any explanation that makes sense to those it spares. A fever might sweep through the garrison during winter, killing 3 soldiers while leaving 20 others completely untouched. Nobody understands why some recover quickly, while others are carried to the chapel for burial within days. Treatment consists of prayer, herbal remedies passed down through generations of women, and bleeding if a physician visits. The connection between contaminated water, rotting floor rushes, and the fevers that keep returning remains entirely invisible here. A child born inside these walls faces survival odds that would constitute a medical emergency by modern standards. Nearly half will not survive to see their 5th birthday, taken by illness or accident without any remedy. Those who live through childhood face a lifetime of serious hazards with no effective medical intervention available whatsoever. A cut that becomes infected can kill a healthy working man within days of the initial small injury. A bone that heals crooked can end a laboring life before it has properly begun at all. The castle walls keep enemies outside during times of siege and conflict. They cannot keep death from moving freely among everyone sheltered within them. The Lord's private chamber represents the best conditions available anywhere in this entire castle, and they remain marginal. The bed stands raised on a wooden platform, providing some protection against rats climbing up during sleep. Heavy curtains trap body warmth during the night hours. A small brazier provides heat that fades to nothing well before dawn arrives. The Lord's wife manages every aspect of household operations, with authority that historical records rarely acknowledge directly. Her decisions about stores, servants, and daily functioning determine whether the castle operates smoothly or descends into waste. Her work disappears from written history, but remains essential to every single life within these walls. Night falls completely, and the castle transforms into a different kind of place than it was by daylight. Torches gutter in wall sconces, creating small circles of orange light surrounded by stretches of absolute darkness. Guards walk the perimeter walls slowly, watching for threats that rarely materialize during years of peace between conflicts. In the hall below, bodies shift restlessly on straw pallets, coughing in smoke that never clears properly. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the fire, a dog growls at something only it perceives through shadow. This is what a castle actually was. Not a fortress of romance, but a workplace made of cold stone. The people who lived here didn't know they were uncomfortable by standards that would not exist for centuries. They built entire lives within walls that offered protection at a cost never properly counted anywhere. That cost was measured in damaged lungs, recurring illness, and winters that seemed designed to break human spirits. The castle kept them alive. It simply never kept them well. Stone shells remain standing across England today, monuments to lives that seem impossible to imagine living now. Whether such existence built resilience or merely killed the weak faster is something survivors never recorded. These reconstructions continue, 1 century at a time.